Thanks to the Shantae series, I've become well accustomed to the platformers from developer and publisher WayForward. They've re-released almost all of the Shantae games on various platforms in the past few years, but that's not all they make. They actually make a lot of other platformers, especially when it comes to handhelds. The Nintendo 3DS was home to a lot of these platformers, at least until today. Packed with 2 3DS games, a Wii U game, and a PC game, here is my review of Mighty Switch Force Collection for the Nintendo Switch. The story of these games are pretty light, but it's the story of the life of Patricia Wagon, a cyborg police officer tasked with recovering and bringing hooligan girls back to prison in the first game and a few other roles in the other games. But whether she's a police officer, cadet, or firefighter, her story is simple. Something's gone terribly wrong and she's got to find those hooligan girls. Now, as I said a moment ago, the story here is pretty light. You don't get a bunch of cutscenes across each game. You basically get one cutscene at the beginning of the first stage of each game that's basically just showing you what's going on. You get the rest of the story basically from the collection menu where you can scroll over each title and it'll tell you what's going on. When it comes to gameplay, Mighty Switch Force Collection is a collection of 4 puzzle platformers. As you go through each game, you're going to be navigating 2D areas, platforming around, and solving puzzles to get what you need to complete the stage. First and foremost, this is a collection of 4 games, but 2 of these games are 2 different versions of the same game. In this collection, you get Mighty Switch Force 1 and Mighty Switch Force 2 from the Nintendo 3DS, and you've also got Mighty Switch Force Academy, a prequel that was released on Steam, and Mighty Switch Force Hyperdrive Edition, which is an HD remake of the original game. And that latter one being a remake means that most of the content is pretty much the same between it and the original. It looks prettier, has an alternate playable character in the form of the original game sprite, and harder versions of all the game stages, but the initial campaign of Hyperdrive Edition is the same initial campaign of the original game. But the real downer about this collection is the fact that we're missing a game here. There are 4 games in this collection, but there are 5 games in the Mighty Switch Force series. The mobile game that was a spin-off of Mighty Switch Force 2, dubbed Mighty Switch Force Hose It Down, is missing here. Now overall, it's not a really huge deal, but it would have been nice to have the entire series instead of almost the entire series. When you start playing through the stages of each game, all of them handle gameplay a little bit differently, but your goal in the stage is the same. You're navigating 2D areas, platforming around, and solving puzzles so you can find hooligan girls and complete the stage. You do this by attacking enemies with weapons that you've got, be it the pellet shooter from the original game in Academy or the fire hose weapon from the second game. Now the puzzle elements of this game don't come from combat, they come from the siren helmet that you can use across pretty much the entire series. Every stage has a bunch of blocks and platforms that can be invisible or visible depending on how you use your siren helmet. You hit it once and the ones that are invisible become visible and vice versa. And when you get later into each game, you also have little launch platforms that you can go down into when they're invisible, and when they become visible, you're launched into another part of the stage. So the task and difficulty of each stage isn't finding where the hooligan girls are, it's finding where they are and figuring out how to use the siren helmet to find a path to them. This formula works pretty well, but thankfully you're not going to be doing exactly the same thing across all 4 games. Earlier I mentioned that each game tackles gameplay a little bit differently, and they do. In the original game and its remake, you're going to be using a pellet gun to fight enemies as you go through and platform around. Whereas in Mighty Switch Force 2, you're equipped with a fire hose that you use not only to fight enemies and clear debris, but also calm down and get rid of fires that are in your way. And Mighty Switch Force Academy changes it even further. All the stages in that game are zoomed out so you can see all of it all at once, kind of like the original Mario Brothers, not to mention the fact that Academy is a multiplayer game. You can play it single player, or you can have up to 4 people playing co-op or versus. So if you thought you were going to be doing the same thing over and over again through 4 different campaigns, you don't need to worry about it because they all handle things differently. Now the final thing we need to talk about here is content and length, which has been pretty much the biggest flaw of the Mighty Switch Force series since its inception. The original game and its sequel only launched with about 16 stages apiece, making them very short games considering most stages can be cleared within 2 to 3 minutes. But with 4 games in this collection, especially the remake of the original that had twice the amount of stages, we've got plenty of content here. After all, if you bought these games separately, you'd be paying $20 just for Academy and Hyperdrive Edition, whereas this collection gives you those plus 2 other games for the same price. When it comes to presentation, I don't have a lot to say about the graphics of the game. Hyperdrive Edition and Academy look absolutely beautiful, though the character models of 1 and 2 do leave much to be desired, but that's mostly because they're in their original forms, and if you don't like it in the original, you can always just play Hyperdrive Edition instead. I don't have anything to complain about in terms of performance, so let's go right into battery life, which is pretty amazing. Mighty Switch Force Collection has a battery range of 5 hours and 19 minutes on high settings, up to 7 hours and 27 minutes on low settings. Now in conclusion, conclusion, Mighty Switch Force has migrated to a new handheld in a very fun and content-filled way. While it's a bummer that the mobile game Hose It Down didn't make it into this collection, it's still a great buy for anybody who enjoys puzzle platformers or just enjoys WayForward's game design. Reviews to Go rates Mighty Switch Force Collection for the Nintendo Switch a 9 out of 10. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thanks for watching and have a great day.